what's up everybody? Tim here, back at you with another episode of Inside the Vinyl. I'm going to take a break this week from discussing lost classics to pay tribute to former Bad Company singer Brian Howe. Now many of you might be wondering, I thought Paul Rodgers was a singer for Bad Company, and you are correct. However, Paul Rodgers left the band in 1982 or 1983 after the Rough Diamonds album. A couple of years went by, and guitar player Mick Ralphs and drummer Simon Kirke decided to start an entirely new project, and they brought in singer Brian Howe. Now, Brian had previously played with Ted Nugent on the 1984 Penetrator album, which gained him some level of national exposure, but now here he is with Mick and Simon on what's supposed to be a new project, but due to record company pressures, they ended up continuing with the name Bad Company. So in 1986, they put out their first record with Brian. It was called Fame and Fortune. It was produced by foreigner guitar player Mick Jones and another gentleman named Keith Olsen. The album, I don't even think cracked the top 100 on the Billboard charts, and produced a minor single with a song called This Love. So not much really happening there. I don't know if people were ready for Bad Company without Paul Rodgers. However, fast forward 2 years, and they put out their second record with Brian, and that would be this album, Dangerous Age. With this lovely cover with this child smoking on the cover. So, you know, that's great. But beside the cover, the album was a return to hard rock, not the bluesy hard rock that they did with Paul Rodgers, more of a, you know, a mid to late 80s streamlined rock sound, but good. You know, it was very polished, but it was good. Very AOR, very album-orientated rock. Produced by a gentleman named Terry Thomas, who also produced the other Bad Company records with Brian Howe after this, as well as a foreigner record called Unusual Heat. But this album returned Bad Company to prominence. It had a couple of huge songs at rock radio, Shake It Up, and No Smoke Without a Fire. Both were huge songs at rock radio and drove this album to gold status. It sold over 500,000 copies. So, you know, the first real successful album Bad Company had had since 1979. You know, we'll come back to this in a moment. But in 1990, they released their most successful record with Brian Howe, and that would be this album, Holy Water. And I'm really hoping, you know, I'll have a graphic up here in case you can't see this CD. I do not have this on vinyl. I tried to get it off eBay, and I waited a little bit too long, and I lost out on an auction for it. So the CD is the best I can do, and the downloaded album cover above my head is the best I can do. Anyway, again, this album came out in 1990. It was a huge record, top 40. Went platinum, selling over 1 million copies. It contains the top 20 hit If You Needed Somebody, which kind of falls in line with the power ballads and some of that stuff that was going on, you know, at the time. Also another top 40 single called Walk Through Fire, as well as a #1 song at rock radio and the title track Holy Water. Again, great record. You know, kind of continued a little more, probably more bluesy in parts than Dangerous Age. Still not quite as bluesy as, say, the Paul Rodgers era, but, you know, very arena rock, very album-orientated rock, you know, and a great record. They followed that up in 1992 with the final album with Brian Howe. It's called Here Comes Trouble, and it contains the final Bad Company top 40 hit with a song called How About That. Brian left the band in 1994, citing, you know, some issues and some differences with Simon and Mick. Apparently, from Brian's side of the story, he and producer Terry Thomas were doing all the writing and pretty much putting all the work in, and Simon and Mick weren't really doing anything but complaining. I don't know, that's only one side of the story, but, you know, unfortunately it did cause him to leave the band. Bad Company went on with a different singer for a while, and then got back together with Paul Rodgers and have been, you know, somewhat active, you know, in the 20 years since. Brian went on to produce or release 3 solo records. He also co-wrote a tune with Megadeth, if you can believe that. And, you know, unfortunately passed away on May the 6th of this year. So, as far as his passing is concerned, I thought it was a little bit in bad taste that the band did not acknowledge his passing in any way, shape, or form, other than drummer Simon Kirke. Simon Kirke did send condolences to the family of Brian Howe, I think the same day or the day after, via his Twitter or some social media platform, I'm not sure. But there was no acknowledgement whatsoever by the band as a whole or anyone else in the band. Now, Paul Rodgers, of course, you know, when the story came out, former Bad Company vocalist dead, of course, everybody was thinking like, oh, Paul Rodgers passed away. And Paul Rodgers came out the next day and stated that, you know, that he had not passed away. that he was not the Bad Company singer that died, but made no acknowledgement whatsoever to Brian Howe or his passing or anything else. You know, and I can forgive him for that, because Paul Rodgers, outside of also being a singer for Bad Company, really has no connection to Brian Howe. They were never in the band together. They never worked together, to my knowledge. So he really has no real connection other than they were both singers for Bad Company. Mick Rouse, on the other hand, you know, was in a band with this gentleman for 8 or 9 years. So even if things ended on a sour note, you work with this gentleman for 8 or 9 years. You had a lot of success with this person, and to not even acknowledge this gentleman's passing, I thought was in poor taste. And I really thought the band as a whole should have posted something on their website, you know, just at least sending condolences to Brian Howe and his family. They didn't. You know, I certainly don't have any control over that, you know, and I don't think anything is going to happen with it now. And again, outside of Simon, maybe nobody else in the band really cares. I think that's kind of sad. You know, they did have a lot of success with this gentleman. You know, three gold records, one of which went platinum. You had a top 20 hit. You had I think like 3 or 4 top 40 hits with this gentleman. Something you haven't done since then with Paul or anyone else. So I just think a little bit of acknowledgement would have been in good taste. But that's neither here nor there. I wanted to pay tribute to Brian Howe because, to be honest with you, the first Bad Company album I ever owned was Holy Water. And without Holy Water, I'm not sure, you know, who knows if I would have ever reached back to the rest of the Bad Company catalog and become, you know, the huge fan of Bad Company, Brian Howe era, Paul Rodgers era, whatever era that I am today. I'm a fan of just about everything the band's ever done, no matter who was singing, and that is all due to Brian Howe, the rest of Bad Company, and the album Holy Water. So before I go, you know, this show is called Inside the Vinyl, and initially, you know, I've done some unboxing videos, and I know I, you know, opened up a Slipknot video, or a Slipknot album when it came out last year. But, you know, it's called Inside the Vinyl, and I rarely actually go inside the vinyl. So, now, to be fair, a lot of vinyl records, there's really nothing inside to see. Some of them have big gatefolds, and some of the sleeves inside are kind of cool, and they have order forms and shit like that, like on especially a lot of old classic rock records, like from the 70s and stuff. Some have absolutely nothing. Some have the cardboard cover, and then just a plain slip inside with nothing else. But since this is called Inside the Vinyl, we will go inside the vinyl. So, Dangerous Age. Let's pop it out of its protective sleeve. Again, the cover with the child smoking on the front. Here is the back, if you can see that. I'm not sure how I have this angled. Just basically has the song titles and then facts about the album, who the members of the band are, so on and so forth. And then, of course, when you slide it out, there's absolutely nothing on the inner sleeve. And then, of course, you pull the record out, and it's pretty standard Atlantic Records fare with the Atlantic Records emblem in the middle. Again, you know, if you get a chance, you know, go back and listen to Dangerous Age. Go back and listen to Holy Water. I can assure you there's at least 2 or 3 songs on this album that you've heard before, if you're not really familiar with this era of Bad Company. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully, you know, I paid decent tribute to Brian Howe. Rest in peace. Subscribe to my channel. Check out some of my other videos. I've got my Lost Classics series that includes albums from Deep Purple, Kiss, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Foreigner, etc., etc. I've also got some festival videos from Welcome to Rockville, as well as Exit 111 this past October in Tennessee. Check those out, subscribe, and until next time, peace out.